Sachin, why don't you go first, and then I'll go, and then I'll lead into the questions.
You got it. Sachin, I'm Vice President of Marketing at McAfee, which is pretty much every customer touch point when it comes to customer acquisition on the digital channels. And I've been with the company for 2 years and have been accelerating the growth from our B2B to C focus on consumer to more direct to consumer. So happy to be here and share my perspectives.
Awesome. I'm looking forward to the conversation. I'm EJ Freni. I'm the Chief Revenue Officer at Claravine. I lead our go-to-market. I've been in the industry for about 20 years now, all the way back to the old days at Yahoo. I was at Adobe for a while. And at Claravine, we focus on solving data integrity issues around data standardization, data governance, connectivity for large enterprise marketers. So excited to talk to you today, Sachin. I know we had a chance to connect last week. There's a lot of things that we're going to talk about. And just to kind of set the stage for the chat in general, the topic that we discussed focusing on is really about marketing orchestration on a global scale. You have had so much going on at McAfee over the last couple of years now. So I figured the way that we would start off this conversation would be with this question. As a global brand, how do you balance globalization with localization?
That's a great starting point. I didn't know you're going to ask some tough questions, but I think this is a good one to start with, though, and that's something that I would love to talk about. One good thing that we have is we have a global brand, so it's good to work for a company where we've been in the market. We were the pioneers in cybersecurity, more than 30 years of experience. Pretty much our footprint is across the globe. You don't have to go and explain who's McAfee. It's like how McAfee has evolved and how it's protecting consumers more broadly is the story that we tell. So going back to your questions on how do we balance between global and local, I think it's a challenge for McAfee, for any marketers to think about, or even business person. How do you bring in globalization where you have centralization of key elements, which is the strategy, the messaging, what you stand for, the value proposition for the customers, technology in infrastructure that can really enable digital acceleration across all e-commerce touch point, data, governance. How do you bring some of these core key elements that you want to manage centrally at the same time? You want to be locally relevant. I always tell my team, and I fundamentally believe in this, for a company to be truly global, you have to go local. Otherwise, you'll always remain an international company in that particular market. You just have to be local. So the way we balance it is some of the aspects of strategy, technology, messaging, value proposition is something that we keep more at the global level. But when it comes to innovation, it is still at the local level, because customers who are in India, they still relate very, very well to Holy Season and what it stands for and how it connects back to cybersecurity, and the threats and intelligence over there are relevant in the market in India. Customers in LTAM, certain markets, they care about installment payments, and you want to make sure that infrastructures are available and innovation is happening at the local level. One principle that I usually apply, it's a thumb rule, not a guarded rule, like a full-fledged rule, is align the accountability and decision-making together. And that's the balance that we do in terms of how we structure our team, where the accountabilities, many of our accountabilities at the local level. So we allow the decision-making and innovation at the local level while making sure we have this perfect hybrid model. I'll say one more thing, and I know I'm going a little bit longer, but I think this is an important point. This tension in my last 20 plus years of working of globalization, localization, somewhere in the middle, one tension always remains is around the decision making. And that requires a cultural element that I've been kind of using it for a couple of my experiences is one team, one dream. When you establish teams to the one dream that you're going after, the one goal, the Uber goal that you're solving for customers or for the business or what have you, then team starts to align. And that cultural piece is very important, sometimes overlooked. It's one of the hardest things to do, but finding the right balance, that's a critical element.
Yeah, I want to come back to that whole concept of communication with internal people and other facets of your business. Before we get there, one of the struggles that a lot of marketers have, especially when you talk about globalization and localization, is there are different, so you've got your business best practices and your business objectives and your brand objectives, but there are also specific requirements on a market perspective. How do you keep that all organized, orchestrated? How do you think about making sure that you're adhering to each of those different markets requirements, whether that's privacy, whatever it might be? And then the second question there is, what advice would you give to those on this call that are walking into the situation right now? What are the core themes that you could point to that they should be thinking about?
That's a great question again. It's very actionable too, EJ. Few things that we operate on is, I think, let's take an example of the local requirement, whether it is from regulatory standpoint or let's just say from financial perspective. So we have team members who are focused and present in the market, who focus on these areas. So don't try to do a North America centric model. Hey, we are truly global, but we're going to manage everything from North America or vice versa, or some other part of the world. And we truly have folks who are embedded in the market, who have their ears plugged to, and they are in the right conversation. So one is that finding that balance of how do you bring that rich local experience by having somebody who's local, speaks the local language, understands the local culture, understand the nuances and regulatory and the payment requirements. And I think the second element is create a platform where these global teams and local teams work together, which is back to my original point of one team, one dream. So I have teams who are local focused, but they work very collaboratively with our global teams within my team itself. And they have regular calls that focuses on specific regions. It's the same call. We talk about global initiatives. At the same time, we also talk about what are the initiatives in Germany that we need to think about? What are the initiatives from UK standpoint? What is latest happening in China? And what is latest in India? So I can keep going on, but create that forum that it's a dialogue. And give importance as an executive or as a leader of the organization. I would highly encourage give importance to those issues because those are important. And the only way you can truly globalize is by showcasing that those local nuances and local issues are important and local requirements are important.
Yeah. So what does that cadence look like? I mean, for better or worse, it's easier than ever to communicate on a global level, on Zoom or whatever application is. But what does that cadence look like for you at McAfee? How do you keep your teams coordinated? Is it a weekly call? Is it a stand-up? What does that look like for you guys? And what's
we have regular stand-ups by businesses and by country. As the need be, some of those stand-ups are weekly, some of them are bi-weekly, some of them are every 15 days. But any conversation that we are having about a particular business, those respective regions are represented and have a voice as well as they are kind of driving. There are many global conversations that are actually driven by regional teams as well. So the cadence it varies, but it is often enough that it is top of mind.
Great. So you talked a little bit about people. I know you have many nuances to the business. You have people decisions and coordination. You have technology, and that's a whole nother localization. What teams are using what technology, but you also have that third layer of partners where McAfee is natively integrated into some of the most well-known devices out of the box in the world. So you talked a little bit about people. Let's talk about technology. How do you make technology decisions in each of these regions? And how do you orchestrate those technology decisions across your team? And then we'll go into the whole partner element there, because that's a whole different ballgame.
Yeah. Our technology decisions are usually to drive consistency, scale, and globalization so that we can take the load. So when we are, every time we consider a decision, we are lucky to be in a position where we have a pretty strong distribution advantage where every majority of the PCs that get shipped has McAfee pre-installed. So there is this humongous amount of customer data that we have to protect and educate and kind of work with. And we want to make sure our technology infrastructure is supporting that global footprint. So when we are making any technology decision, whether it is about tracking or analytics or delivery to the customer, scale becomes very important. Scale, integration, security, and privacy of that data. Our customers trust us for privacy, and we want to make sure that we have the gold standard when it comes to the privacy. So those are the decisions that are still taken at the global level. What we do making any technology decision is before that, we build a list of use cases or how this technology would be used in a variety of different scenarios. When you do that, it multiplies the complexity, but it also grounds you in terms of making those decisions. For example, hey, we cannot use this particular, for example, we build the whole technology around search engine for that particular matter going to the market. There are some markets that do not have the same search engine. The search engines are different in different markets. Even the programmatic delivery platform are different in certain markets as well. So that's where we kind of enable from the global foundational technology. Now, the example that I gave about the search engines being local, there are payment providers that are local. For example, Paytm is almost like a de facto in India. Likewise, I talked about the installments in Brazil and some of the other markets, or CVS cards in Japan, or like in Poland. So there are local payment technology that we let that innovation come from the local teams, what is relevant in that market, but it still integrates into the global stack. But does Paytm has to scale to the US? It doesn't need to. Yeah. It's not relevant. It still has to connect back in a secured, integrated way, so the data is coming back so that we can get that 360 view and have that consistency that can be delivered to across the team. So that's how we approach. I think it has worked out well. Is it perfect? Probably there isn't a perfect solution out there, but we try to keep the foundational global and then innovation and the specific technology of the regions and countries to kind of integrate accordingly.
Great. You know, how do you, so you're pre-installed in hundreds of millions of devices across the world. How do you make sure that all those partnerships, all those native integrations are on brand, they're speaking the same marketing language, that they're orchestrated and coordinated with the rest of the, you know, the McAfee teams internally? How do you tackle that?
One, it starts with defining who you are, what your brand is, what your brand guidelines are. So we make sure that we define what those brand guidelines are. Even when we have partnerships, at the time itself, we discuss what experience do we want to deliver to our customers. So experience become a very core central conversation of even our partnership conversations. We are not a tool that customer is buying every single day, but the customers are trusting us with immense amount of data and privacy that they put on us. So we want to make sure that experience is seamless, smooth, and that relationship is longer. Again, we enjoy long-term relationship with our customers who choose to use McAfee for their holistic protection, they stay with us longer. So those conversations that we do about partnerships or rollout starts with that experience, what that experience we want to build, what is our brand, what we stand for, how we represent, how our partners want to be represented, etc. And then those requirements are embedded within any of the rollouts that we have done. This is where I was explaining earlier, some of the core elements. For example, there is a page that needs to be, for example, there is a landing page that we need to build in, and that experience has to be completely built. It is the innovation, the design, the creativity, all that could come, and the nuance and showing up and the messaging could come all from the local teams. But the rollout is still happening from our central teams, which are working within the guardrails. We use the standard, we have a custom CMS that we build on, and those things are pushed out. Mm-hmm. We are available on different PCs, so we want to make sure that we are very, very clear about what kind of experience we are delivering to somebody's PCs or their devices, and where our brand kind of fit in within that. So we want to make sure that those things are centralized while the innovations could keep coming from the local market. We try, are we perfect? I think it's not 100%, but we do aim towards a pretty high degree of substantial alignment in terms of our brand representation as well as our customer journey.
Great. So you talked about a customer experience, right? Is at the core of everything that you do, whether it's through a direct engagement with McAfee or through a partner. All of those experiences are driven or fueled by data. We talked about people, technology, your partners. Data is a whole nother element, right, on a global scale. It's near and dear to our heart at Claravine, obviously. But so how do you think about data structure, data strategy at McAfee? Who owns that? And how do you articulate that and ensure that that's being correctly utilized at global scale?
Yep. So that's a good one. So the data has multiple elements. There are data as one is the collection, the other one is ingestion, cleanup, massaging, uh, alignment, putting the data structures and connecting, stitching the data, just working on the data. Call it as ETL layer. And the third one is insights and reportings that can be built on top of that. And the fourth one is activation, which is where machine learning and artificial intelligence starts to play. So when it comes to the data management, you have to keep that central from my standpoint. At least the scale that we are dealing with and the privacy requirements that we have, that cannot be decentralized. It has to be managed centrally, and we build in data structures and data models that align to a variety of different form factors that we support with the customer. But we do have a pretty substantial data lake that we have built that kind of connects to different customers at the right time. And it has the right rules engine and AI models to making sure the right message is delivered to the right customer at the right time. So that is one. That data is ingested. Now, as you start getting into the layers of reporting and analytics and insights, this is where it becomes totally decentralized. Anything we manage from the data standpoint, we make sure that there is a democratization of the data so that there is not one team which is built in building all the reports. Because then that one team will become a bottleneck. At the same time, you're really not pushing the culture of data. At any given point of time, we're running more than 200 tests. There is no way you can centralize all of that and all the reporting into the same team. What you want to do is you want to build tools that other teams can use to build upon. For example, if you're running a typical A/B testing or a multivariate test somewhere in Germany, we build a standard statistical modeling tools that tell you which test is working well, which test, what are the guardrails, what is the statistical power, et cetera, et cetera. All that has been democratized and been leveraged by the teams at the local. They don't need to come back to the central team and try to manage that. They can make the decisions because those tools are available. In addition, the data is available. Data is very clearly labeled in terms of, so it's highly intuitive. Even if you're in India or in Brazil or Mexico, you can go to the data and you can leverage the data and run reports that you have. In addition, there are standard dashboards. So this allows us, this separation yet integration allows us to make sure the data is secured, managed at scale, and available to all the parties. At the same time, we are enabling a more data-driven culture, which promotes experimentation, promotes testing, promotes audience insight, promotes reporting, and be plugged into your business, which is very critical. More so in e-commerce business, digital business, than probably some of the other ones where we don't have the data available on your fingertips.
You mentioned something I just want to dig into a little bit. So intuitive. Data is something that's intuitive, that people can actually make sense of it. There's a whole wide spectrum of people that need, as you said, the democratization of the data across McAfee. You have your quants, your BI folks, people that are heavily invested in AI, ML, but then you might have some business decision makers that just need clean data. How do you make sure that data is intuitive? How do you keep those structures and standards in place?
We are marketers. As marketers, we start with the customer. Yep. So you always keep, there is an executive, so my team is building a dashboard for me or for our CEO. You start from there onwards. What is relevant? When you start at that level, this is relevant, and then you cascade it down across the board. Then there is unification, there is consistency of the data, and not everybody is seeing different reports and different numbers, which is very common. I'm sure many of the marketers experience this as well. Hey, my number says this and your number says something else. Why is that the case? We do get into that situation too, but we try to connect it from in a more cascading way. We have a ton of dashboards. There are a few that pretty much everybody goes to, and they have views that you can kind of go and drop down, and you can select, hey, this is a CEO level view, or this is a GM view, and you can kind of go from there, and that view customizes. The view that I like the most, I customize, and then I click download in a spreadsheet, and then I do my own spreadsheeting or whatever I need to go deeper into, because I think beyond a particular point, you really want to go deeper into the data. And if you start solving for every corner use case of a data savvy person, then our entire BI team would be busy just building those dashboards.
Yep.
So build certain standards and allow capability for people to download and then work as they work upon.
Great. So a lot of what we talked about is orchestration behind the scenes. It's going on with your teams and teams on a global scale, partners, people, technology, all of which culminates in delivering customer experience, right? And there's no better example of customer experience than your webpage. And you just went on, you underwent a big rebranding of the McAfee.com website. That's a big lift on a global scale. Can you walk us through how did you launch that whole program, and what are some of the things that you learned that you can impart wisdom on with the audience?
Yeah, I'll say a few things. One is we completely relaunched our website. So I'll talk about from our website experience as well as the landing pages. And then I'll talk about the teams and internal structures as well. So when I came in, we looked at our website, we realized that what our website really needed was reorientation, rebranding, and re-architecture towards what a modern website looks like. And also build it for performance marketing at the same time from the customer engagement standpoint. So we did a lot of research, and we found certain use cases that our customers are using when they're coming to our website, or the best in class we're using. And we inculcated those into the user journey that we created on our website. And we also asked the question, what do we stand as a brand? What is the value proposition that customers look for? Are we, as a brand, one of the key things that are close to our heart is trust and joy. We focus on safety and holistic protection, but trust and joy is very, very important. So how do we make sure our website is representing that, it is welcoming, the language that we are choosing, yet it is very, very operational when it comes to execution and the journey, what you call as merchandising or conversion rate optimization tactics. So that's one. The second is we made sure that you build all this great website, but if it is not discoverable, it means nothing. So SEO was starting into the foundation. And we looked into all different types of content that you want to build. The visible content that customers read, semi-visible content, the URL structure, breadcrumbs, etc. And then even the invisible content that customers don't see, like structured data, sitemaps, and things like that,
Data
that
layer.
bots look. So we made sure our linking strategy, content strategy, and technology was built into enable organic discovery of the content that we have built in on our website. And then we also made sure that we are building a site which is built for experimentation. You don't do experimentation because you could, but you will not be as effective and at scale when you don't build something for experimentation, right? So we built our website for experimentation. So the tag management system, the analytics, everything was kind of embedded in that. And when we rolled out, the results were very meaningful and very encouraging as we looked into it. But we kind of took that forward and looked. We have a team which is centralized e-commerce. So anybody who lands on McAfee.com in any which channel, from the moment they land to the time they check out, the whole experience is managed by this team. And they have local teams, so that keeps bringing the local innovation, other things that we already talked about. But this team is responsible for end-to-end. In my experience, I've always seen our landing page is working just fine. The checkout has a problem. So we kind of centralize this, like you're responsible from end to end. So you look at the customer journey holistic, and because it's the same customer that's flowing through, we want to make sure that customer is getting that seamless experience. So we kind of build this team. Earlier, this was all decentralized in different teams. So we kind of centralize this, allows us to deliver that consistent experience. It also allowed us to productize our technology and things that we were delivering. So anything, and I've said it in many of the podcasts and my conversations too, I personally, if I do anything 2 times, I always think about, can this be a product? Can we automate this? Can we standardize it? Can we make it templatized so that people can use it? So if you think of our scale, so we have built a lot of products and playbooks that are now applied across the business and regions consistently across this e-commerce team. So you have to kind of look through this journey that we have built from organization standpoint, as well as the technology and experiences. I feel at this point, I feel pretty good in terms of the products that we have launched. Like the checkout experience is highly modular, highly scalable, and available. So all those good things are kind of embedded into that.
Right.
Is that something, EJ, you were looking for, or you want me to elaborate anything further on that?
Yeah, so the only other question I was going to ask before we go into some other questions about trends in the industry, did anything have to change in that strategy? You know, so obviously last year, and I'm sure this has been a topic of conversation with every Fireside chat, right? Global pandemic, consumer behavior has dramatically changed every single year. If there's one thing that's constant in our industry, it's death, taxes, and digital transformation, right? But as you embarked on this journey, and again, everything that we've talked about is all about customer experience, delivering exceptional customer experiences. What, if anything, did you have to change, especially last year, to react to how consumers were asking to engage with the brand?
I would say less of a change, but I would say more of an accelerate. It was a learning. So last year, we all know global pandemic hit us. So our lives moved very from home, and very early we recognized that our customers are going to work from home or they're going to lead their life from home. So we started an initiative called From Home, and that was all about the digital lifestyle from home, which is you're working from home, you're talking to each other from our homes, people will meet, spend time with their family from home, you will even date from home, homeschooling, school from home, you even meet your doctors from home, transact from home, what have you. The use cases has just ballooned from when we envisaged. Also, we knew a lot of our friends, because of the pandemic, lost their jobs, so they would be looking for jobs from home.
Yep.
So what we did is we launched this initiative and we started developing content which was more relevant to the customers on these lifestyle and enabling them towards more digital wellness, and also helping them through the period of pandemic that all of us were experiencing at that time. So I'll give you examples of that. So we used to build highly technical content around what is VPN, what is security, why should you care about the technology that we use. We shifted that towards here are the 4 series of things that you need to know about homeschooling. As a parent, these 4 things, these are helpful tips and tricks and tips that other parents have used, or our research shows that these are the tools that will help for you. These are the resources you could go and even homeschool your kids. Mm-hmm. We also had 4-part series on how to look for a job interview from home, even telling you how do you set up your camera, your device, and how do you present yourself, how you prepare if there is anything. So as we shifted our focus on the content more towards the lifestyle and the digital wellness, we realized that content started to resonate very, very well to our customers. So then the question comes like, now we have developed this really amazing, good piece of content. How do we make sure that it is discoverable and it's flowing through the pipes and it is available through all our communication channels, whether it is our website, whether it is SEO, whether it is through all our communication channels. So that's the effort that we've started to put in. And now we have editorialized that across the globe, at least in few markets, and started to localize as well. Some of them we are translating, some of them we have transcreated to be locally relevant. So yeah, I think that has been a good shift. It was there in our radar, but like many other businesses, we also experienced the rapid acceleration, but I do feel this has helped us even more tilt towards more of a direct to consumer company, from consumer standpoint, from a consumer business standpoint, as you were on this path before.
Yeah. And I'm sure you've seen it helps you develop less of a transactional relationship and more of a true relationship with your customers.
It truly is. And I feel that this is one thing that we feel proud, but also it is a responsibility, is the customers who choose our service, they stay with us longer. So the lifetime of a customer is longer because, we're in the cybersecurity protection. That's the service that we deliver, whether it is identity, whether it is privacy, whether it is trust, or security of your device, holistic. And you're not going to give your SSN information or your security information to a separate company just because somebody gives you a $10 discount.
Right.
Customers don't do that. They trust us with that information. So it becomes even more important to have that dialogue and communication versus a transaction only, because transaction happens just once a year. So I think it is more of how do you maintain that relationship.
So we've only got time for, I think, a couple more questions before we open it up to the group. But one of the questions I wanted to ask you, whether or not it's related to everything we just talked about with global orchestration, when you think about digital trends, these 3 days are all about digital trends. What is the biggest trend that you are keeping an eye on? What's the most fascinating trend to you right now that you're focused?
I briefly touched on that earlier. It is the digital lifestyle. I think the digital lifestyle is here to stay.
Yeah.
Pandemic has forced us to do that, but now we have discovered things that we never discovered before. You could be in Bahamas and you could be working for a company in San Jose.
Right.
You can really homeschool your kids. So I think there is a silver lining somewhere here, and the digital lifestyle is here to stay. Like people are a lot more comfortable transacting online, meeting their doctor online. It is a lot of productivity has that comes. We are keeping a very close eye towards digital lifestyle. And why so? Also because as customers are more digital, the digital wellness becomes even more important. So a lot of our focus is towards, as consumers continue in this path and continuum of digital lifestyle, how do we make sure there is a digital wellness and awareness and education and the tools that we keep making available to the customers? So they start thinking about identity. How we want to make sure that they're aware how their identity is being used as they're living their life online. Privacy, they are in control of the information that they are sharing online. There is some kind of a genuine exchange and a transparent exchange of that value that customer is ready to give their privacy information to specific sites as well. There is trust when customers are living their life digitally. There is a trust that their information or their data is secured and protected, and the link that they're clicking is not a fake link, which we all experience many times, more so in last 1 year than ever before. And also, when I'm on my vacation, I'm not worried about my devices, my IoTs, and others getting hacked. So I think as customers look for that holistic digital wellness, digital lifestyle is very close to me, and I live digitally pretty much, so I relate to it very well.
Yeah. Well, I'll ask you another question just to piggyback on. As an incredibly busy global marketing executive, how do you shut it off? Right? Our lives now are this industry is always on, but now more than ever. How do what feedback or piece of advice would you give to others? Like, how do you shut it off? How do you create those guardrails between work?
Just personally, I struggled with it in the beginning.
Yeah.
Because I love my job. I love what I'm doing, and the purpose that we have is pretty amazing. Like I joined McAfee because I have a 7-year-old and I want to make sure that the world that she's going to live in is going to be highly digital. It's protected and safe. So that brought me here. Advice that I got and I kind of inculcated worked really well. Few things that I did is one, I'm lucky to live by a lake, so I go around for a walk. I block that time. Some of my one-on-ones are also happening while I'm walking, so it's walk and talk. Again, digital lifestyle allows you to do that. And then I block my time towards the evening or the time that works for my family, and those times are well. And one advice that I gave to my all team members, and I gave it to everybody here, is take your PTOs, take your breaks, they matter. Turn off, take a break, recharge yourself. You'll be a lot more productive and efficient when you come back from that break after being recharged, and you have no idea how wide and good your creative juices would be flow when you are well rested. So please do block your calendar, take your PTOs, and read a book. I have no idea how many books I've read in the last 1 year. I've always loved reading, but I've read a lot of books too. So
any books for the audience top of mind that you would recommend?
I think growth mindset is one that I can represent. I think I have many more, but I would just say that's one that I would relate a lot, and others will find beneficial too.
Cool. I see Annie's coming on. I'm sure we're going to Q&A. I have one last question though I do want to ask, just to lead it. Okay. If you had a magic wand and you could fix anything, open-ended, what would that be?
There are a lot of things that I would fix. But because that could become a topic in itself, but I'll talk more from marketing standpoint to stay relevant. I would say the one thing that every marketer would appreciate if it has gotten fixed is measurement and attribution compared to incrementality.
Yeah.
That has continued to getting challenged. And I think as an industry, we need to look for solutions which are less in silos and more holistic and allows marketers to be able to measure the impact of their efforts and their investments.
Great.
Awesome. Well, thank you both so much. I mean, if there are any audience questions, EJ and Sachin, that you want to take, go ahead and feel free.
I don't see any in the Q&A, so.
Oh, good. Well, I mean, that was the perfect way to end the convo. Thank you both so much for joining us today. We really appreciate it. Hope to see you both again on our stage very soon.
Great.
Guys, EJ, great talking. Thank you, Annie. Bye now.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you both so much. All right, and thank you everybody for joining us today for day 2 of TrendWatch. It was a really fantastic day, some really, really great speakers today. So please make sure to join us tomorrow. And I'm so sorry for anyone who hears that snoring. It's the French bulldog that I talked about earlier. She's on my lap. So please join us tomorrow for day 3 of 4 of our TrendWatch Summit. It's going to be another packed day with some really great brands. So you'll be hearing from Cody, from Root Inc., Tools of America, Casper Sleep, Popeyes, Third Love, RB, PepsiCo, Simple Tire, Reddit, and many, many more. So please, thank you everybody for joining, and we hope to see you again tomorrow.